We're just going to alter normal programming because I think we've got the Minister of Health on the line. Dr. Coleman, are you there?
I am. Good evening, John.
No, good evening. You're driving somewhere. How long are you heading somewhere? How long have we got you for?
Well, I don't know, a few minutes.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, we've got the news at 6. We've got the news at 6. Look, we're delighted to have you. We just wanted to talk about the deficit, the combined DHB deficit. Obviously, you came on twice in August. Once it was under 117 million. Once it was under 100 million. Then the second time you came on, I think August 24th, remember, it was 117 million. We've been told today from a source at the Ministry that it is now substantially higher. Are you able to confirm that?
No, that's not correct. Look, you might be confusing the initial cut of next year's plans. I don't know, I haven't seen them yet. But the 16-17 number is 117.5 million, as it is on the Ministry of Health website. So that's unaudited. The audited result is generally available in October. Normally it doesn't deviate much from that. So we'd expect it would be that figure, which is, a fraction of less than 1% of the total DHB budget.
Absolutely. It's just sources at the Ministry tell us that it is heading north in a big way. You must know this. You must have been briefed on this.
No. Look, John, 2 days before an election, all sorts of rumours going around. The latest advice I've got, 117.5, and I don't expect the audited result available in October to deviate much. But look, I think you're actually fundamentally getting confused with what next year's plans might show. So you're talking about the 16-17 deficit. Of course, we're getting an annual plans, none of which have come to my office yet for 17-18. So let's see what that number is. It'll still be less than 1% of the budget, but of course, DHBs get more money every year, and they will next year again.
One of the figures you keep giving us when you talk to us, and we appreciate you making yourself available this evening, thank you, is you say when you took over from Labor in 2008, the combined DHB deficit was 150 million. You kind of use that as a high tide mark, and you say every year we have done better than that. My understanding is that... Yeah, absolutely. My understanding is the projections contained in the annual plans for the 17-18 year that you do now have, the Ministry now has, is significantly higher than 150 million. Now, surely, under the no surprises regime, you must have been told that.
No, because we haven't worked through the annual plans, right? So there's always a first cut of the annual plans. The Ministry works with the DHBs before they come up with their final projected number for the year. So, look, I know it's very exciting for you, but quite honestly, I have not had that number yet. I seriously haven't. It will be a bit higher than this year's number.
How much?
But look, it has to be moved through. I don't know, but I mean, the deficits have been slowly moving up a bit, but we're still considerably lower at this point than Labor's 160 million.
How many annual plans have been signed off on? Do you know?
No, we haven't signed them off yet. They haven't come across, so they've been submitted to the Ministry, and then they have a look at them and move them across to my office. But this is quite normal.
It's my understanding. Look, Minister, we really appreciate you fronting, and we know the Ministry.
I'm quite happy to.
We know the Ministry does this work, not the Minister. But it is my understanding that a substantial number of them were sent back because the Ministry didn't like the deficit figures.
Oh, well, that may well be true because, it's always a negotiation with the DHBs around the projections. There's a bit of back and forth, but don't forget this is the difference between two very large numbers. The deficit numbers for the DHBs are less than 1% of their total budget.
Did you hear Lester Levy speaking on Checkpoint a couple of weeks ago? He was talking about exactly this issue, and that is the tension between the DHBs and the ministries. Because what Lester Levy says is that actually when he became in charge of rationalisation and making DHBs come in Auckland on budget, he was able to find efficiencies. He was able to find some slack in the system. He was able to make some cuts. No longer. So when the annual plans go in and the ministries push back and say, no, find greater efficiency, save some money, the DHBs are now saying to the Ministry, we can't.
Well, I think you're generalising from Lester's interview of a few weeks ago, but look, the general point is the DHBs submit their plan and then there's a bit of a negotiation around them. And every year, health gets more money. A record amount this year, biggest amount in 12 years, 888 million. We're at a record amount of spending. It's gone up $5 billion over the course of this government. We're providing more of everything, and across hundreds of services that DHBs provide, you know, the vast majority of them are better, and we're providing increased access to services all the time. Surgery, specialist appointments, GP fees, you know, 2.5 million New Zealanders are going to be either getting free or very cheap GP fees. But of course there's always challenges, and the answer is we've got to keep on doing more, which I'm very much committed to.
Can we talk about Stephen Hoffman at the Southern DHB at Dunedin Hospital? Now, I know you spoke about him the other day on Morning Report, and people have talked about how the fact that the Southern DHB is a particular anomaly, that things haven't gone very well. We put in an OAA asking how long men are waiting for prostate surgery after diagnosis. 14 DHBs of the 20 came back to us. Now, the longest wait for prostate surgery is indeed at the Southern DHB. Nelson Marlborough had 146 days. The Capital Coast DHB had 92 days. In other words, the Southern DHB is not unique for the kind of pressures it is under to get people into surgery.
Well, look, the DHB, the Southern, look, that urology department, there was a reason there was an independent review there, and that's because it was not providing coordinated care. So, you know, as I said the other morning, funding always helps, but there are far more major systemic issues there. The service in Southland was not talking to the one in Otago, Invercargill and Dunedin were not communicating well, and as such, men were failed. And look, I feel terrible about that because that is the human face, and it's a failure.
But isn't there a failure if the Nelson Marlborough DHB has a man waiting 146 days if Capital Coast Health DHB tells us they had
I'd really have to go and check that. Look, honestly, you know, if you want to talk about that, we could. I'm quite happy to, but I need to be able to see the figures and understand the context beforehand.
Minister, are you happy that the DHBs have the resources that they fairly and reasonably need? Now, Jacinda Ardern says they're $2.3 billion short. You say actually they're doing very nicely. Are you happy that there is not immense pressure on them now to find efficiencies when they simply can't?
John, as I've always said, it never feels like there's enough money in health, but overall you've got to look at the results. And with $5 billion more, we're producing more of everything. So 56,000 more elective surgeries. It's gone from 118 to 174,000 per year, and 150,000 more specialist appointments, all backed up by 7,000 more doctors and nurses. But there's always more to do. Demand is insatiable.
Dr. Jonathan Coleman, we really appreciate you phoning in those circumstances. The Health Minister phoning in and taking us up to the news.